This video is sort of a part 2 to the video I uploaded yesterday, and I want to talk about something totally different, something go a little further than the petrified humanoids and petrified animals and things like that that we see in our landscape. And I don't want to relay the foundation that I did yesterday, going into petrification and the science of it and all of that. So if you haven't seen that video, please go back and watch that first, because that has all of the science, the DNA tests, the CAT scans, the MRIs, to lay the foundation to help you hear and receive what we are saying. And that's very valuable, because this is some paradigm shattering stuff. The world we live in is nothing like what we have been taught the world is. So I know that video is long, but please, I encourage you to go back and watch that and get a primer in the science and the archaeology and stuff that you need so we can move forward. But right now, I want to show you guys the most amazing thing that I found. This is a volcanic igneous intrusion where the lava came up in this form 225 million years ago. No, of course it's not. It's a tree stump. Anybody can see that. It's a tree stump. And so is this. And so is this. And so is this. And so is this. I think you get my point. We see these remnants of this massive, massive forest that once covered the earth, these massive trees. We see the tree stumps. And we're just told they're mesas, right? Mesas. Just amazing. Mesa means tabletop because they're flat on top. So we see these massive, petrified trees, stumps of trees all over planet Earth. That's not even the shocking part. The shocking part is who cut them down. They're completely flat on top. And that leads us back to the video that I did yesterday about these enormous humanoid beings from the first Earth Age that we also see petrified all around us. At some point, we have to realize it's not a coincidence that we see faces and skulls and hands and feet littered all in the rocks of our landscape all around us. And then we see other life forms, not just the animal kingdom, but the plant kingdom. We see enormous tree stumps also petrified in the landscape all around us. At some point, we have to let go of this false paradigm that the mainstream has fed us. And we have to start real science. We have to admit that we are not the pinnacle of everything. Let your ego go. Check your ego. And let's evaluate what we see with our own eyes. And we know not all trees are cut down. Of course, some fall down in massive storms and cataclysms and high winds, and some just from rot. So do we see any evidence of that? Well, let's take a look. Now, I'm obviously not saying that every mountain on planet Earth is a fallen tree or a fallen giant. That's not at all what I'm saying. I completely understand that we have natural events, we have erosion, we have earthquakes, we have over the millennia, we've had tons of cataclysms and, mudslides and all sorts of things. I completely agree. I'm not saying that we need to discount all of that stuff, the natural events, but what I'm saying is that we don't need to discount this research either. That there are, we make them national landmarks for a reason. We recognize that they stand out in the landscape. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that every single mountain is a fallen tree or a fallen giant, so don't twist my words. I'm just saying that there clearly are petrified remains of the antediluvian world all around us, and we can see them. We see hands and feet and faces and skulls and tree stumps and all of it. We see all of it right in front of our eyes. We have to stop disregarding all of these things and just calling them anomalies and mysteries because they don't fit the false paradigm. And we have to quit trying to force a square peg in a round hole with these bogus theories. Not one scientist in any of our lifetimes has ever seen lava flow in straws, in long fibers, hexagonal fibers. But we do see this structure everywhere in plant life. So maybe if we see something that looks like a giant petrified tree stump and it has this perfect plant-like cellular structure, we could just start there. Okay, so this is the United States National Monument we call Devil's Tower. And you can clearly see all of these hexagonal columns that go up the length of the entire structure. Now, they tell us lava did this. I've never seen lava flow straight up in perfect hexagonal columns, but that's what they say. And we see this same pattern in these buttes and places all across the earth. And you can see it does not look the way lava flows. So it's just mind-boggling that that's the conclusion they came to. But the conclusion that I come to is that it perfectly mimics the structure of plant life. And you can see even the gravel, as the bark and different parts of the petrified tree have eroded off over the years, there's a gravel pit all around the structure. So there's the petrified stone, there's the missing pieces, and it reveals this sort of core of this tree stump that to anybody besides modern geologists, it looks exactly like plant life. And we see this structure everywhere. It's not just in Wyoming. This geometric pattern that we know we see throughout different life forms, it's a repeating sort of building block of life and cellular structure. We see it all on every continent. These eroded down trees, plant life, it's eroded down, and you can see these same sort of hexagonal geometric patterns. And regardless of what type of environment, they're in all different vast environments. They're not just like right around volcanoes or anything, but it doesn't matter. Everywhere geologists see them, they just explain them as lava. Like here, you can see some of them. Apparently the lava fell from the sky. It didn't break up through the ground as an intrusion because the hexagonal fibers, the pillars, don't even reach the ground. But anyway, here's a slideshow to take a look at some of these. They're everywhere. The evidence is everywhere. And I get it. It's hard to wrap your mind around these enormous plant life, enormous trees, and even harder to wrap your mind around that there was something big enough to cut them down, or like these petrified humanoid giants that we see in the stone of our landscape. I get it that it's hard to wrap your mind around, but we have to get there. We have to get there to understand where we are, who we are even. So one of the things you can realize once you see how big the trees were, then you can see that what we see in the petrified forest, which was always a bit of an anomaly because they didn't seem to grow out of the ground. They were just kind of scattered there like they were staged, and I'm not saying they were staged. I think it's probably closer to the truth to say that these are branches that fell off of these giant trees, because these are the size of trees we see today. So I would assume that these that we see that fell to the ground and are shattered into pieces and are petrified into all these beautiful gemstones, these are the branches that we see that have fallen to the ground, and they're petrified, so they've been preserved for us to view. I know it's hard for most of us to conceptualize a world with creatures as big as dinosaurs and the fossils that in the plant life that we have recovered that they've admitted to us. So it's certainly hard for us to wrap our minds around vegetation that could be this huge. But if you have eyes to see, you can look at the Google Earth images and see that many of our hills and mountains and landscape resembles plant life. This looks like branches of a tree. It looks like foliage and branches of a tree. Not to mention the giant humanoids, but it looks very similar to the fossils that they've shown us. Because we were all born into this world when it was already in a state of entropy, when it's actually at the very end of the age, where it's been stripped and it's desolate, and we think this is normal. It's all we've ever known. So it's hard for us to wrap our mind around a world like heaven. When it talks about heaven, it's not what we see now. It's not what we're doing now. This is the world going to hell in a handbasket. This is a flatlining area. But the 60 to 70 archaeological finds that we now have bound together and we call the Holy Bible, because our ancestors took the time to recognize that they were the authoritative record of Earth's history, and they took them and translated them and bound them together so we could all have the book. That's what the Bible means, the book. Bible translates the book because it was the authoritative record. And it records a time on earth that earth was Eden. And I've long said that Eden isn't a tiny little area in Mesopotamia that people were confined to. Earth is Eden. Earth is Eden. The trees, the tree of life, the trees talked about in the Garden of Eden are these enormous trees that we see the stumps of today. This is the remnant of the age that used to be. And not just the Holy Bible records it, every culture records it. We call it mythology because it seems so far beyond what we can comprehend, because we live in this desolate, strip-mined desert that we think always was. But this is the death. This is the death of a planet. This is the death stage of entropy. And at the center of the garden was the tree of life, which now we have the ancient records. They call it, I think, Mount Meru, because the tree also has been cut down in this dimension, and it's a stump, and they call it a mountain, just like the pictures I just showed you. They call it Mount Meru. It's the remnants of the tree that grew at the center of the earth, in the center of the Garden of Eden. I know that if you even speak of these ancient maps or any of this evidence, you'll get accused of being a flat earther. And I also know that when you're faced with this stuff, this information for the first time, it's psychology 101. So I understand when people unsubscribe, they're going through the phases: anger, denial, acceptance. I get that. But I want to be clear that this is not a flat earth video. Personally, I do not have enough information to come to any conclusion about the shape of the earth. I've never been up high enough to see it, and I'm certainly not in any of these secret societies, or am I privy to any information passed down through the mystery schools. But what I do have is all of the regular tools and technology that we have in this era to measure. You can get your Nikon camera and you can look out over the horizon and see if you can see further than you should be able to mathematically. And I have the actual video evidence to see the fakery and the CGI and the different things we see. So Although I can't come to a conclusion about the shape of the earth or anything, I do have enough proof to come to the conclusion that we have been lied to. We have been lied to. They have faked images for some reason and broadcast them to us as real. So even though I don't have all the answers and I can't tell you exactly where we are and what this dimension is, what this thing is, I can at least admit that. I can at least admit I don't have all the answers. And because I can admit that I don't have all the answers, then I can keep an open mind and I can continue learning until we get there. And that's all I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to look at some of this evidence. Now, this is evidence that is also used by flat earth researchers, but they come to conclusions. I don't think this evidence is conclusive of anything other than we've been lied to. So I want you to view the evidence through other eyes, through new eyes. Maybe the earth, what if the earth is round and it's enormous? What if it's so much bigger than we've been told? And that's why the math doesn't work out. And they're only taking, they're only showing us images of a small portion. What if there is more land, like these maps that have been recovered show? What if the few continents that we are allowed to live in inside this little ring, what if this is a plantation? What if this little piece of land, this little bit of land that they allow us to live on, what if this is their slave plantation? What if they know that there's all of these other continents and paradises? Think about, look at, say, Prophets Among Us or channels like that, or different movements within the Christian movement that say they've been shown these places, these sort of paradise beaches, this different land, and when they ask the angels and stuff in the visions, is this heaven? They just chuckle and they say, no, but something like that. What if these ancient maps hidden away in monasteries that are just now being recovered, showing all of this extra land, what if that's the explanation for how these giants, how they had room to even move around? Why we don't see the slope of the earth is what they say it is. It's bigger. What if these hold the answer? That there are Nephilim races and they're not coming from outer space. They're coming from the other side of this ice ring. And we're kept here as this slave race, as this prison planet type slave race for them. I mean, they call us, literally, they call us human resources to our face. They tell us to our face, they use the actual terminology labor force. Labor force. They say, oh, you're not children of God. You're not gods. You don't have any power. No, you just evolved. You're monkeys. You're pond scum. Life is meaningless. It's just happenstance. You're here by accident. So just sell your life to us by the hour. We'll give you $10 an hour for your life, or we'll buy it by the year. We'll give you this much a year. So you just sell your life to us by the hour and join our quote unquote labor force. They tell us to our faces, report to the Human Resources Office. You're a resource, like oil, like coal, So would it be beyond the stretch of all imagination that perhaps this is a plantation, that there's more than they've told us? And here's one quick example of them hiding something, and it's old news to the flat earth researchers, but I'm not saying that it proves flat earth, but it proves that they used a window to cut off part of the earth, a circular window, and they lied and said that the camera was pressed directly up against the window, and you can see someone's arm move in front of the camera. So it's not up against the window. But here's them in their own words on Apollo 11 pretending it is.
We only have one window that has a view of the earth, and it's filled up with the TV camera.
And then, of course, you see something move in between the camera and the earth. So unless it is a giant out in outer space on the other side of the window that the camera is supposed to be pressed up against, then clearly they're lying. And of course, here's the rest of the infamous footage showing that the camera's way back in the vessel, and they turn the lights on, or the lens iris or whatever opens up on the camera, and you can see that earth there in the picture is actually being filmed from clear across the ship through a round window. So it wasn't the entire Earth. Then when you look at the next images, the more modern images of the blue marble Earth, they keep showing us. And these are all shots directly from the NASA website. You can just go on there and look at these and do the analysis yourself. That these are photoshopped. They're photoshopped. The clouds are, clouds don't naturally take these forms where it's the same exact form over and over and over. No, they got lazy with their propaganda. And so when they do the cloning tool, they just think nobody would notice, at a distance when you're looking at the big picture. And nobody's really talked about this until the last few years. But it's right there. It's right there for everybody to see that they're using a clone tool. This is not a picture of the Earth, because everybody says, oh, well, we've seen pictures of the Earth. You're all crazy. Yeah. Yes, we've seen pictures of the Earth, photoshopped pictures of the Earth. Why would they do that if there's nothing to hide? Why would they use a circle window to cut out a swath that would make the Earth look round? If it's just really round, just put the camera up and take a picture out the window. Why would they Photoshop and clone clouds and create images? Why, here, this is supposed to be taken from satellite, the first image of the dark side of the moon, going around the Earth. But why are the clouds on the Earth never moving? I can go outside and do a time lapse of the sky, and the clouds are constantly moving. And it takes around 27 days for the moon to orbit the Earth. So are you seriously saying for 13 to 27 days the clouds never moved? It's like they just treat us like we're stupid. And then here's two pictures of the Earth, both from the NASA website, one dated 2007 and one in 2012. And look at the size of the Earth. They're so sloppy with their propaganda. It's unbelievable. So I know they have their rebuttals and why this happens, and they say it's because satellites take the pictures and they don't have any full images of the Earth and they piece them together from the data. So which is it? Do we have pictures of the Earth? Have we seen the Earth, or have we not? And of course, I could go on, parroting research that most of you have already seen, but this is not a flat Earth video. This is a video about the antediluvian age, and about being able to see with our own eyes the remnant of it all around us, and yet at the same time being lied to and told by the establishment that we're not seeing what we're seeing with our own eyes, and that every single record left by all of our ancient ancestors on every continent and every culture is mythology. And I know there are still tons of people who are brainwashed and can't break free of the mind control and what they've learned in the re-education camps. But I am not ashamed of the Holy Bible, and I am not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's the truth. The word apocalypse doesn't mean war. It means the curtain being pulled back, to pull back the curtain or pull back the veil. It's the revealing. It means the exact same thing as the revelation. It's the revealing, the removing of the veil, the exposing of the truth, all of the hidden things coming to light. That's what's happening right now. The time is now. The Great Awakening is now. So I understand if you're still in those early phases of the awakening and you're still in the denial and the anger and everything that comes before acceptance. But I just want you to know that I'm extending a hand right now. I'm extending the truth to you right now. Please receive the truth. Receive your red pill. Receive the truth. Receive the Lord Jesus Christ. The truth will set you free.